bigger and more high scale things than single family in his portfolio. That's what he said.
I'm making great money. I could retire at 65 with $350 million worth of real estate.
I have my little iPad on my bed and I just look through all the houses. Even though I had no way of affording them, I just love looking at it. Everybody was like talking about hosting, like make 10 grand a month, passive, right? No license, no education, whatever. And that's what really got me into it.
I've always been intrigued with real estate. Whether it's like a beautiful home, just like checking out the different bedrooms, what can I potentially do with this?
Because all the information was already there on the spot instead of me figuring out little pieces of going through all the YouTube videos.
We invested over $100,000 in coaching this last year. Welcome back to the Wealth Juice podcast. As always, it's your boys, Ryan and Corey here with another episode for you. Today, we interviewed Kevin Choe. He is a real estate investor that specializes in creative finance. We actually found out about Kevin from learning a little bit more about the Sub-2 community in Pace Morby. Kevin is one of Pace's all-star students, I should say. He is a 24-year-old. He built a portfolio of 27 single-family houses and was managing that with a partner. Recently sold off the entire portfolio to move to New York to start buying businesses. And he's looking forward to getting into residential assisted living and scaling up his portfolio and doing bigger and more high scale things than single family in his portfolio. That's what he said. And it's just impressive to hear what such a young guy has been able to do at such a, like I said, such a young age. And he mentioned his story is, he's a college dropout and he realized it wasn't for him. He felt like he was made for something more and just it wasn't vibing with the classes and the curriculum and said, I'm going to forge my own path. And instead of just dropping out, he dove into YouTube, started studying how to make money, how to build wealth, and stumbled upon a bunch of different things. He started in Austin Bazak's ATM business building course, if you will, right, in this community. And then started getting peppered with ads for real estate investing he found a bunch of different guys, but Pace Morby was one that jumped out, the Gator method. Most of you guys know Pace out there crushing it in creative finance. And so Kevin dove all the way in and started buying properties Sub-2 and through a bunch of different ways on the creative finance side and did this over the course of like 3.5 years, got all the way up to 27 units.
I got to give credit to Kevin. He's somebody who most people decide that they don't like something once they fail at it. And then they're like, oh, I sucked at this. Like, I got to pivot and I got to do something else. He actually decided that he didn't like something well after he became successful at it, which is once you get successful at something, most people are like, oh, just stick with that thing and do that one thing forever. But he kind of like from the heart was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I'm making great money. I could retire at 65 with $350 million worth of real estate. And he mentions that, but he's like, I don't love this. So he took his portfolio, 27 units, and sold it off. And I think that there's something powerful about that. There's something that like most people wouldn't do. And they're like, well, I've already built this. I've already like created this network. I'm already in it. Like I can't leave. I can't reinvent myself. And that's exactly what he's doing. And he picked up and he moved to New York City. And he's like, we talked to him at an interesting time because he's at like an influx of like, oh, I'm not exactly sure what I want to do next. I think I want to go into assisted living. And like he talks about the journaling and like how he got to this point of the thought process of why he wants to do that. And then the specifics of like what an assisted living looks like for him. So he's pivoting from the real estate game to the business game. So, there's parallels, but it's different. And somebody like Kevin, there's really no doubt that somebody like him will be successful, being that he's like, he's just kind of attracted to the success of just the grind. So it was fun. It was cool to get to know somebody who picked up and moved and across the entire country and is now ready for his next venture, almost like he retired and starting over again at 24 years old.
Yeah, it's so interesting, man. His story is just, it's amazing. Truly is for such a young guy. And I think we talked about in the episode that I wanted to highlight is the quick start. So the faster you can go from soaking up information, digesting it, and synthesizing everything that you're taking in and just taking action, the quicker you can start in building relationships and taking what you've learned and putting it into real life work and action. That's the fast track to success and wealth and all these things. And I talked about that in the episode, but I wanted to mention to those listening, the goal here is to showcase to you what's possible if you put your nose to the grindstone, study, and then take your notes, go take action the next day, and don't sit on it because you'll forget about the information. You'll find something else that's going on and maybe the new shiny object. So, stay focused, and it's crazy what you can do in such a short amount of time and at such a young age. Age is only a number. So without further ado, I think we bring in Kevin and let him share his story. Kevin, officially welcome to the Wealth Juice podcast. Corey and I are stoked to have you here, man. We mentioned off recording that we've done a lot of research on you. We found you on social. I saw you were doing a lot of things with Pace Morby. Turns out you're really close to Jesse Ray, who's one of our good friends who runs Immersion and Growth House. So we are running in the same circles and thrilled to have you on the show and to share your story, man. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Every time I get an opportunity to share my story, I like some podcasts I've done like a year ago, so I get DMs saying, hey, like I really enjoyed that podcast, and it gets me excited that like, hey, like I'm doing this and I'm making an impact, So I'm just so grateful for any opportunities that I have.
My man, I appreciate that. So, well, we'll try to make it fun, a little bit different than all the other shows. I know some of them can be cookie cutter, so you can hang with the boys. We'll make it fun. What I want to touch on, man, let's just start here. You're 24 years old. So
Right.
for listeners, I just want to show you what's possible no matter what age you are at. And Kev, we'll go through your story. You can kind of explain it for people, but I wanted to highlight it early on. It's fun to have some young blood in the room. We've talked to a lot of gentlemen and women who are maybe in their late 40s, early 50s, and they've seen success, later parts of their life, and not really later, but like middle parts. And you're super young. You've met a lot of the big players. You've done a ton of deals. So take us just through your story, really. Like, where did it start? When did the light bulb go off for you when you were like, whoa, I really think I can get into.
Yeah. I realize I'm very unconventional and untraditional in the way that the way I think and the way I want to do things. And it really started when I found out I wasn't getting into the school that I applied for, which was UC Irvine back when I graduated high school. And I went to community college for about half a semester, and I'm like, I just don't want to. I just feel like there's nothing special about this place, at least for me, and I don't feel like me being here is going to serve any purpose, because I'm one of thousands, right? And I always had like a different thought, like what if I want a different result. And if I want to see different results in my life, then why am I doing everything else that everybody else is doing? So, which is one of the reasons I decided to drop out of college, and I said, you know what, I'm going into this thing called business, and just little like backstory is like I always like loved real estate. When I was in fifth grade, I would sign up for this broker's email newsletter, and I'll get a list of all the houses that came up in the market, and every single night I'll have my little iPad in my bed and I'll just look through all the houses, even though I had no way of affording them. I just love looking at it. I'm like, oh, this is a really nice house. I love this house. This is only $600,000 house. This isn't back in California, and I'm like, well, that it doesn't really matter. I can't even buy them, but I always love doing that. And so my very first business, most people don't really know, is like it wasn't real estate. It was ATM business. So
Got it. How did that come to be? And it's like you're a serial entrepreneur, and we'll get into the rest of it too. But I'm curious about the ATM business.
Yeah, so ATM business started because I was watching all these videos on YouTube on how to make make $1,000 a month, $2,000 a month, and one of the videos that came up was an ATM business, and actually one of the guys that did an ATM business, his name's Austin Zabak, and he was like 22 at that time, and you guys might know him. Yeah. And he had an ATM business, and I'm like, if somebody like 22-year-old can do it, then I feel like I'm sure the barrier of entry is not as high as people as it perceived to be. So I said, so I bought his course, and I bought 3 other courses, and I was like, this is kind of like, it's like a very simple idea. You buy the machine, you put it in a location, and you just service it, and you just gotta go, and you go two or three times a week just to fill up the machine. So I actually. Once I knew the whole process, what I did was I actually door knocked every single gas station within 5-mile radius of where I was living in. So all the gas stations and all the cash only restaurants, I went and knocked on them in all those businesses, and I ended up getting a machine location, like a little gas station. It was Valero gas station, like a little franchise, and the owner Danny was like, "Hey, there's this ATM. We used to have ATM like there 7 years ago, and this guy just stopped showing up out of nowhere. So that there's a broken ATM that hasn't even touched. It's been just collecting dust for 7 years. If you want to come and take that and put your own machine in there, you're more than welcome to." And that's how I landed my first location. And then that's when I found out about the contracts and the marketing stuff. But that's how I rolled.
How did that parlay into real estate then? So like you learned business very quickly about the ATMs, and then I know I know the end of your, like, not the end, but I know the point of your story that you're at now, but like you bought all this real estate in the in between. So how did you find your way to real estate after the ATM business?
Yeah, going back to like the YouTube side, right? Because my feed was just feeding me all the ATM stuff, all the business stuff, and that's when I ran into Max Maxwell and Jerry Norton, and they were talking about wholesaling, and this was like 2020 when wholesaling was like just taking off, and I feel like it's kind of dying out a little bit, but everybody was like talking about wholesaling, like make 10 grand a month, passive, right? No license, no education, whatever, and that's what really got me hooked into it. And that happened to be the time that my parents were like, you know what, we're moving out of Southern California, we're actually going to Vegas because we bought a house there. So I ended up selling with one machine that I had to Danny, the owner, and then I was like, okay, well, do I want to start? So now I'm here in Vegas. Do I want to go build out a ATM business, or do I want to go the wholesaling route? I've never like went the real estate route, but I've done the ATM business, so I know how it works. And then I'm like, you know what, if I want to see the longevity and I want to see like me scale out of this, I think real estate is the path to go. So I'm so glad I did not pursue my ATM career and went into the full on real estate. And then and then that's when, like, a few months later I run into Pace, and then his like marketing campaign was buy houses with no money, none of your cash, none of your credentials. And then that's when I would like really start to take off in terms of like, okay, let me just figure this like real estate thing out. And that was when I was 20, I think 21 or 20.
Wow. So I want to pause there really quick. So this is so interesting to me. You mentioned, I think it was 5th grade when you were looking at houses on Zillow, and it's so interesting. I've looked at houses for a long time too, and not trust me. In 5th grade, I was not looking at pricing. I wasn't looking at anything. I didn't know how to run a deal, but like I've always been intrigued with real estate. Whether it's like a beautiful home, just like checking out the different bedrooms, what can I potentially do with this? And I always kind of felt like I would get into it at some point. My dad has a little bit of a entrepreneurial background and does some real estate himself. And so we're always going through these cool properties and things. And so I always kind of had this little like inkling that it in the back of my mind. And then, fast forward to finding out most people make their wealth, or most millionaires become wealthy through real estate investing. That's kind of like what pushed me into it. I just think it's so interesting that you were so young when you got into at least the kind of the mindset of looking at real estate. But I also want to touch on one thing, and that's taking action and investing in yourself. Now, there's so many people that will go on YouTube and they type in how to invest in real estate or how to invest in ATMs, right? And they stop there. They'll watch a couple of videos, be like, that sounds cool. And then they put it on the back burner, like maybe in their notes, like, hey, I should do this. I should follow up. I should study more, read more books, right? You didn't stop there. You kind of probably listened to all the playlists, went through, but then signing up for a coaching program in your 20s, like your early 20s, is daunting for anyone. If you don't mind me asking, what was the price of Austin's ATM?
It wasn't a mentorship. It was more of a course. I think it was like 500. It was less than $1,000. It was somewhere in the hundreds. I'm pretty sure it was 500.
For someone that just had dropped out of college, right? That's a lot of money. I don't care who you are. And so for you to have the wherewithal and the guts to say, hey, I'm done looking for free on YouTube. I know to get to the next step, or I think to the next step is for me to spend $500 and take a course on it. So I just really appreciate that, because a lot of times it takes people to go 10 plus years of studying the game and like on and off, and maybe, analyzing some deals here and there, and they never take action. But for you to get in, can you talk to, the importance of, investing in yourself and maybe not mastermind groups, but we could talk about, like, I know you got in with Pace in the community. Talk to just the importance of getting around the people that are doing the things you want to do.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why I paid for the ATM machine at that time was I was still going through the process of like, okay, let me just figure out this business. And there just wasn't a lot of information on YouTube. That's what it was. If there was all this information, yes, like, if you don't have money, like, yeah, you just got to watch as many videos as possible and figure out all the pieces together, and you got yourself a little course. But the only reason I paid for that mentorship was because there was just not enough information, and I said, okay, well, if this is a course that's gonna help me get through it, then so be it. And then I'm like, okay, well, I just watched this course, and imagine, I watched like 3 or 4 other courses. I paid for 3 or 4 other courses, and I'm like, I just learned everything about the ATM business in 3 days. Like, I binge watched them for 3 days, and I'm like, I don't think there's any other questions that I have. It's just straight to execution. because all the information was already there on the spot instead of me figuring out like, you know, little pieces, going through all the YouTube videos. So, and that's when I'm like, okay, well, it does pay for time. Like I just paid. I mean, it's, who knows how long this would have taken? Maybe 2 months, and I was able to learn this in 3 days. And I'm like, let's go straight into execution. So I kind of like master that. And even still to this day, it's hard paying for things, right? Like paying for masterminds that are, you know, $25,000 a year, paying for, you know, mentorships that are $700-800, you know, lifetime. Like those things still, you know, they still dominate a little bit, but the amount of money that you save because of the shortcut that you get is like not even, it's priceless, truly.
Yeah. I'll let you go into this, Corey. I just want to put a stamp on here is like, the quick start that people have, that dictates how successful you'll be, I believe. And the quick start is what I mean by that is the ability to research something, digest the information, and then put it into action. How quickly you can narrow that gap and start doing with that synthesized information is how successful you'll be. And if you can keep doing that repetitively over time, you will be in a much further place. Like, for example, I just want to throw this out there. Like, we invested over $100,000 in coaching this last year. We just got back from immersion season 3, which I mentioned to you out in Arizona. Corey and I had like probably 5 to 10 pages in our notebook filled with information and contacts that we should reach out to. The first week we got back, the reason we're like so backed up on things is we immediately started implementing an operating system within our business based on 3 guys we met out in Arizona, and just started building out landing pages, email scripts, CRMs. And I'm like, dude, we were just missing this whole world. And it's already changing the game for us so much, and things like that we wouldn't do. I got home, someone said, dude, you got to read $100 million leads and $100 million offers by Hermosi. Dude, got the audible version for like, I don't know, $13. And then the big book that he has, sat down for 2 days and just crammed it, dude, typing away on my notes app. And immediately I blasted Corey with like 5 things that he's like, dude, you got to stop. Like I'm randomly middle of my day. You can't give me all this information, but I was peppering him with the spark notes from the book. And we immediately implemented stuff on our calls today. So it's just, I just want to say that for people, for the people that want to get successful, I'm just showing you that you have to become a reader. You have to start learning, and you can go on YouTube, you can read books, but then you have to immediately, the faster you can not forget the information and just start doing, the faster you'll see success. And not to hijack the call, Corey, but go ahead.
No, I wanted to talk about the actual implementation. So like what exactly you did. So I know that you met Pace. I mean, we can catch people up to your portfolio and all of that, but like what exactly did you do to scale your portfolio at such a young age specifically?
So I ended up just buying my very first house when I was 21, and it was, and I say it was like, I say it very nonchalantly, but it was very scary. It was like it was homeowner going through a foreclosure, and she was like, can you just give me like $500 and you can just do whatever you want? I'm like, okay, perfect. Let me take over your mortgage payment, give you $500. So it was a deal where it's like, it would not make sense if I didn't buy it. But like, you know, just like something in me was like, this is scary to do. And I go through that whole process, and you know, I like I said, I'm skipping forward for this entire process. But I'm like, I buy the first house, and I'm like, I could probably replicate exactly what I did on the second one just by doing the first one. You know, find somebody that are in a situation, you know, like for example, her name's Maritza. Like Maritza was in foreclosure, and she was behind on her payments, and she bought the house like 4 years ago. And I'm like, okay, well, let's go find more Maritza. You know, people that are behind, they typically don't really care, you know, if somebody comes in and takes over the payments. So I said, let me find more of Maritza. And what was the system that I used? Okay, I borrowed money to buy this house, and then I turned around and, you know, rented. Like my payment was $1,300, I rented for $1,900. Like let's replicate the exact same deal in this exact same market, and repeat it over and over and over again. And then and by the way, I'm not a systems guy. Like I'm more of a guy that just gotta kind of figure things out as you go. So I'm like, let me just copy and paste the system for the first one and the second one, and then like the amount of time that it took me to buy my first one, to buy my second one was like half than the amount of time it took me to buy my first one. So and then I just consistently started doing that. Like,
how did you find those deals? I'm very curious about, like, so I know that you met Pace, you maybe bought into his system, right? But like, were you dialing based on foreclosures that you were finding online? Were you sending out mailers? Like, how did you even like get into the frame of mind that was the right decision for you to make to go buy homes that were being foreclosed on?
In this case specifically, I didn't really have a lot of systems set up in my own business. I actually had somebody else that had the system, and they're like, "Hey, Kevin, like I have this deal. Do you wanna buy this deal from me?" So in this case, that's what we call a wholesaler, right? Like they feed the deal to you, and that's how I was able to buy my first one. So the second one, I actually bought it from somebody else as well.
Got it. Okay, cool. So catch us up to like where you are today. You actually, I want to get to the position where you actually sold all of your real estate. Now, I find that very fascinating for somebody who's 24, where you're bringing some passive income in. You have some equity. A lot of people say buy and hold on to them forever. Can you just walk us through the steps it took you to get to where your portfolio was, and then the decision to sell and like how that came to be?
Right. So I built a 27 unit portfolio all about creative finance, like subject tos and 0% seller finance deals. I built a 27 unit portfolio within in my real estate career, and I would say I was making pretty good money, like it's just passive cash flow wise. Like all of my houses were doing midterm rentals, so like each house we were making $5,000 gross, and rent was our payment is like $2,500, so we're taking about $2,000 a month on each house, and I was doing really well. And then it got to a point where like it's like nothing about building a single family portfolio excites me, and it's so ironic because just about 3 years ago I bought my first house, and I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever done. It's like I bought a house when I was 21. And 3 years later, I'm like, I am not interested in buying another single family house. And just because I wanted to go bigger, I saw what my potential was. And, just looking at like logistics and like, okay, how many single family homes do I need to buy? I was like, it's not something that excited me. So what I ended up doing was I sold my 27 unit portfolio on seller finance. Like I sold the entirety portfolio to my partner on 0% interest seller finance. And I was like, I'm going to go build something even bigger than 27 unit portfolio. And I don't know where this stupid confidence came from. And, maybe I still don't know. Maybe I made the wrong decision. Who knows? But I'll find out the hard way. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to build something bigger than this and faster. And I'm going to build even stronger of a cash flow. And I don't know whether that's multifamily or, buying a business, but I'm going to figure it out. So I told my partner, hey, like, if you give me a number, I want to sell. I want to get out of this. And she gave me a very like the number that I got it wasn't high at all. It was very, very low. But because she didn't really have a lot of money at that time, but it was a freedom for me to go on to something bigger because the small things were tying me down.
Go ahead, Ryan. Go ahead.
I got a bunch here. So just doing the math, you mentioned 27 units, 2,000 in cash flow per. So are you telling me you were bringing home about $54,000 per month?
That was together. And some houses we had like during the summer in Arizona we had a lot of vacancy. So like one house we'd have at least 3-4 houses that was vacant. So like 3-4 houses vacant would be like, I don't know, 2,500 times 4, like $10,000. So during the summer we suffered truly. We suffered. So we lost a lot of money on cash flow. And then at the same time, we were always buying projects. So we were taking the money from our like actual cash flow that we were making, and then we dump it back in because some projects are taking longer. So we now have additional month or two in holding costs. Sometimes they go over budget, and sometimes they don't get as rented as quickly as possible. So I would realistically say like we were $6,000 a month together each.
Got it. That makes more sense. I was like, to sell off something that's pumping you $54,000 a month, dude. That's interesting, to say the least. I was just curious on that, but thanks for breaking it down. I will say it's so interesting you mentioned this. Real estate doesn't, blow my socks off in any type of way. Like I like it. Don't get me wrong, and I don't want to stray people the wrong way. But what really gets me going is hearing stories like yours and other people's that have found success. I've always been super curious about how people reached a certain level of wealth or success and how they did it, right? Because everyone bleeds the same blood. They're just everyone has maybe a different circumstance they're born into, right? And a different set of tools in their toolbox to go make it. And it's so interesting to me. So I think that's where it parlays our podcast perfectly, where I'm interested in real estate. I know it's a big vehicle to build wealth, the number one pretty much, and to learn from all the best in the world at how to do it. That's how kind of Corey and I can leverage our skill sets and build our portfolio and scale. And it's what we've done over time. But it's so interesting where you just, you had a successful portfolio, you almost mastered a craft in a way, and then you pivoted to another angle. And I want to talk about that at some point here, maybe buying the businesses. But what I really want to talk about is the inception story of meeting Pace, right? We kind of glossed over that. And I know you're doing a ton of research online. And one thing I want to highlight here is, and you could probably break this down in your story, but a lot of people are searching to find a way that they can provide value to others, right? You're a young cat, you're just getting in the real estate game, and you're probably like, okay, I don't have a job right now. I have skill sets. I know some of what they are, but I want to get around players that are doing way better than me and elevate to their level. How can I provide them value for them to give me some of their time and some of their knowledge, right? So on that note, how did you prove yourself to Pace, and how did you provide value to show that was worth his time to show you some love?
The way I admit, well, first of Pace is very generous, so like I could be bringing very little, but he would bring a lot more to the table than me. But a couple of things that I realized was like, I joined Sub 2 very early on, and there weren't that many people that were stepping up to the plates, right? So for me, like it really didn't really take that much. Like I was probably one of the very few people that actually consistently show up to the Zoom and just ask questions, and the questions that I would ask are the questions that as I'm going through a deal, right? So I would ask, hey, 1 week, hey, Pace, I'm going through X, Y, and Z. What are the solutions? And Pace says, do A, B, and C. And the next week I'll come along and say, hey, Pace, my problem was X, Y, and Z, and you told me to do the ABC, which I did. I'm running across, I'm running into problem D, E, F. What do you think is the next solution to the problem D, E, F? And that's kind of how my relationship really started with Pace. And I'd always bring questions that was like very relevant to the situation that I was in. I was never like, hey, Pace, can I just pick your brain? Like none of the questions I brought were hypothetical. And I love that, because as I start to do more one-on-one coaching with other people, not that I don't have a coaching program, I just do like, hourly kind of thing. There's nothing more that I love than seeing somebody spend, time with me initially, and they come back, they reschedule, and they're like, you told me to do this, I did this, and then what now? And I'm like, it's so fulfilling for me.
Dude, I totally get that. I will say, so Corey and I have a coaching program to help people get their first or next investment property, specifically rental property, within 3 to 6 months, right? And so we are so confident we can get people there. And so we decided, like, hey, we've done this over and over ourselves. We have people DMing us all the time. Let's start a coaching program. And what I've gotten, like, as we've gone through this, we have office hours for an hour before, and then we have, an hour after that, we have a coaching call based on, what they've learned on the podcast, what they've learned in the course, and just all of the information we've given them, right? And so what we found is there's a lot of people that just, even if they do invest in a program, right, they still lurk, and they're just like taking their time with it. Where there's other people, i.e. the Kevin Choes, that come in and they're just hit the ground running. And I tell people, and Corey and I, this is kind of one of our mantras, like you get what you give, but also we match effort for effort. So if there's someone coming into the calls every week, right, and they're asking question after question, like they're going to get the most love and attention purely because their closed mouths don't get fed, right? Like the people that are raising their hand, they're like the squeaky wheel acronym, or not acronym, but analogy, right? Like that's the people that you're like, okay, cool. Like let's help Kevin out. He's got all these questions, real life examples. And then it's, what you don't realize is the people, we don't want a quiet call on the coaching side. It's like, it's so boring when you're just like sitting there and it's like Corey and I talking to ourselves, like, okay, if there's no one reaching out to ask questions, then it's kind of us just talking in circles over and over and educating on the same thing over and over. So from Pace's standpoint, it's really cool to have someone like you where you're like, oh, like Kevin gets it. This dude is grinding. Like we want to give back to the people that are putting in the effort and trying to change their life. So I just want to put that into perspective for people listening. That, if you do get into a coaching program and you do end up investing in yourself, and like you're buying into other people too. They appreciate that. Like Pace, not only did you put money into his program to show belief in him, but then you show up every week consistently, meaning you value his time and you're asking questions, which are also bettering the group around you. Like you're a valuable asset to that community as well. So there's just things that you might not think about. And so I wanted to at least prove that you don't have to put tons and tons and tons of efforts trying to provide value. Like sometimes just showing up is the number one thing. So, but take us from there. Sorry, I kind of hijacked your thought.
Wait, I want to add on that, because it doesn't really take, like, you think if there's 1,000 people in the group, Like it really doesn't take a lot to be on the top, like for you to start to get attention, right? Like if there's 1,000 people in the group, 80% of the people are not even on the Zoom, so now you're 200 people, 150 people don't even turn the cameras on. So now you're competing with 50 people, and of the 50 people, like maybe 15 people ask questions, right? So now your competition is literally just showing up, just turn your camera on, ask questions, and actually take action, which is the whole point of the mentorship, and that's what you're supposed to do. So only 15 out of 1,000 people are doing it,
Yeah, I love that, man. I think one of the things I want to point out about you is that you allowed yourself to be successful at something that you knew could potentially not be your forever thing. And I think that that is powerful, where you said, I'm going to go all in on this thing. I'm going to go all in on this real estate, thinking at the time that it was like the most fun thing. And you're like, I can't believe this is amazing. And then 3 years later, you gave yourself permission to be like, this isn't my thing anymore. Now, most people will spend those 3 years trying to figure out what their thing is, what the thing that's going to take them to the end result, like all the way across the rainbow. They're going to be like, oh, I'm going to try this for 3 months. That isn't it. I'm going to try this for 3 months. That isn't it. But you did the thing and you became successful. And then you turn around and said, nah, actually, I don't even want to do this anymore. But now you built the skill sets to go build something else. And there's something that's beautiful about that. And I want to highlight that for people that are listening. Do something well enough. And we say this to people that are listening. If you're working in a restaurant right now, and you're maybe listening to our podcast on the to and from, like the drive to a restaurant, and you're serving or you're bartending, be the best person that you can be there, because you never know who's going to walk in there who might have a new business venture or a new idea that you can latch onto that person. And your example is a little bit different than that, but you did the best that you could at this one thing, became really successful. People don't get 27 doors in 50 years of real estate investing, dude. And you did it in a couple years. So, I want to highlight that and make sure people understand that you be great at whatever you're doing, even if it's not the thing that you love, that is going to take you all the way to the finish line. So what gave you the decision to be like, okay, I know I want to get out of this, but not knowing what's next, I find that very fascinating. You're like, I'm not sure if this is the right decision, and how candid and awesome is that for you to say? But I have no doubt in my mind that you're going to be someone that's successful because you've seen success in other ventures, and you take that exact mindset and you put it towards what you're going to do in the future.
I mean, like I was journaling today. I read my Bible every day, and then one of the things I do is I journal. And in my journal today, I don't know if it was today or yesterday. I wrote something along the lines of like, I wish I could find the right date. It was something along the lines of, okay, like I moved to New York, and so I sell my real estate because I know I'm gonna build something better and greater, like I said earlier. And I didn't know what that was. So if the next thing I'm gonna build, I don't know what it is. And still to this day, I don't think I know what it is. I think I have a vague idea of what it is. And then I moved to New York, and then like now, like basically my real estate business is just kind of standstill. I'm not really making a lot of money on it as much as I used to. So now it's like, but then I know the hold on, let me read this. Let me read this to you. Because
While you find that, keep going. No.
Yeah.
I'm going to read something while you find that, because this is interesting. We walk our community members through this, but if you guys have not heard this, just look this up. It's pretty simple, but it's really powerful stuff. It's called vision casting. And it's basically the act of communicating a clear and compelling vision of the future to yourself, and you're mapping out your future. A lot of people, you'll map out what you want to do in your professional life, right? And you're like, okay, well, if I just get at this stage, I'll be a sales manager, then I'll be a sales director, then I'll be a sales VP, then I'll be SVP, and then maybe CRO, and then maybe president, right? And like you go through that. That's just one example of a hierarchy in a corporate world. Now, a lot of people don't do that with their life. And they're like, okay, if you think about it, why are you not planning out where you want to be in the next stage of your life in terms of your finances, your health, your wealth, your family, all these things, and like planning your life instead of just your professional world? And so to put your vision out on, some people do a vision board, but what I really like is like printing out pictures of things that I want. Like, so I really want this blacked out Lamborghini, right? So I have that. And then I want the specific house, like 4-bedroom house with like a wraparound driveway. And just like when you see it, when you visualize it, right, you have that in your brain. You're like, I can get there. I'm going to get there. We put a dollar amount. Like Corey and I, it was funny. Like maybe, I think it was 2 years ago, maybe it was last year. I know we do it every year, but we sat at his house and we did a whiteboarding session, and it was almost like a vision casting setting. It was putting all our goals on paper. It's like, okay, where do we want where do we want the income streams to come from our business, from our podcast, from our email marketing, from our Instagram, all these things, right? How can we build a business out of this thing? And we put a bunch of stuff on paper, and at the end of the year, lo and behold, everything was checked off, right? And so when you do that and you put your dreams and aspirations into the universe, and then you put them on paper, and you break your aspirations down into goals, and you have like checklists and things in a timeline. If you don't give it a timeline, it's just a dream, right? It turns into a goal if you actually have a timeline you can check off with an end destination and something to go attack. So I say that there's a difference between goal setting and vision casting, and like planning out your life and what you want out of it. And so I think for people that can be, what does success look like for you? That's different for every single person, right? So just putting that out there just as a top level to go into vision casting. And then journaling, the reason I brought this up was it's very powerful to manifest things and say things and give yourself positive affirmations, and just that inner voice in your head. If it's giving you negative energy all the time, you're going to produce negative things, right? And you're going to get yourself into a hole. If you're producing positivity, you're going to be able to give positivity to the world, surround yourself with other positive, optimistic people and things like that. So putting things in the journal is also a way of kind of holding yourself accountable in a way, right? And be like, oh, I wrote this. You can reflect and go back to it, because time is fleeting. And I notice if I don't write things down, I have this amazing idea and I forget about it, because the world hits you with so much information. So a lot of thoughts there. I just wanted to highlight the journal aspect. I think it's important for young entrepreneurs to start doing this and get in the habit of putting your things that you want to do on paper, because it's funny how fast you can actually attain these.
Yeah. So the journal that I wrote today, 11/19/2024, that's today. I said, I'm on a mission to make money I deserve to make, and starting this entire journey on my own. And I said, I will legitimately make $1 million. God, thank you for allowing me to have the vision I have. And I say, God, as I have the following, I pray that I'll be able to give the glory back to you. I feel like I'm behind. I feel like I'm not doing enough. I feel like I'm lost on many things. I feel like I lost on a lot of, I feel like I lost a lot of money to monetize on things, because I didn't like start to monetize on like my hourly, right? So I just felt like okay, I had the credibility, I just didn't really monetize on things. So I'm like, but I literally said today, I said, I feel like I'm not doing enough, and I feel like I'm behind, and I don't know what the next move is. And I pray about this, but then I know, like, as a, I grew up in a Christian household, and faith is very important to me. I know how the beginning story and the end chapter of the story is going to be. Like, I know it. Just the middle of how it's going to play out is something I don't know, but I have so much faith in on how the end chapter is going to be, and I'm not worried.
Dude, I like that. I really like that. The middle, you're writing your own book. You're writing your own story, right?
Yeah.
So with that said, what are your plans for now? Like, what are you looking to do? You mentioned that you're unsure a little bit. You sold your rental portfolio. You're looking to buy businesses. Tell us about your day-to-day right now and what that looks like for somebody who's, an entrepreneur who's kind of on the next chapter. And I'm going through something similar. I know exactly what I need to do, and I'm doing it every single day, but I'm a full-time entrepreneur, and sometimes it's scary. So I'm very curious on your status.
I'm actively looking at buying businesses, and one of the businesses I'm looking at is an assisted living facility, because that's what my stepdad does, and he works at an assisted living facility. But I have a couple of my friends that actually are the owners of assisted living facilities, and they are telling me how profitable, number one, and how much demand is going to be. And I'm looking at it. It's like you buy a operating commercial building that's operating as an assisted living facility. Like, you have the real estate aspect of it, which I'm super familiar with, and you have the business aspect of it, which I'm somewhat familiar with. So that's my next vision, or at least the next 12 months. And yeah, that's that. So I'm actually working on like lead generation, which I have experience in. I have experience in sales, I experience in the underwriting. So like, it's just like taking this skills that I learned in real estate and applying that into business acquisition. So that's what I'm really working on, especially before the end of the year.
Very cool. We have a couple contacts for you when we wrap the call on residential assisted living. I got you on that. And you may already know the people, but we'll talk offline. So
Yeah.
I think that's awesome, dude. It's super lucrative. It's interesting. It's kind of a similar to rent by the room, right? And just a different way. You're putting a business in there. So you're already on the right path. You already have some previous skill sets that can parlay into this and super lucrative. You're finding very unique properties, but your background in this, I mean, you'll kill it. So I think overall, we just wanted to share your story to showcase what's possible at such a young age. And one of the things that I just want to highlight for people as we wrap the show is the importance, once again, of believing in yourself and not being afraid to pivot, but also cracking down when you have to crack down. There's no way you would have gotten to where you are today had you not put in the hours to learn, read, study. And though you dropped out of college, you didn't stop studying, you didn't stop reading, you didn't stop putting in the hours and the work, right? You just did it in a different way. A lot of people that drop out, and I shouldn't say a lot because I don't know everybody's situation, but when you hear college dropout, people knock on that sometimes, right? Or in their, no matter what, but you find out half of the C students in the world and the D students are actually the ones owning and operating the businesses because they're just not, they don't like taking the tests, and they know how to, they have street smarts and they know how to hustle and they know how to put things together. Right. And so you mentioned you're not a process guy, but look at how far you come without processes. Right. And it's just so interesting to me. So we like to highlight that, but I know there's listeners here, and this might be the most basic thing you hear all day, but there's so many listeners that are listening to a podcast. They're maybe a quarter way through a book. They're on YouTube researching how to do this, and then they stop there. Like the next stage, soak up all the knowledge you can, but then the next day, just take action, make the call, introduce yourself to a realtor, introduce yourself to a lender, start asking them questions and just networking because, and this is specifically for real estate, but like if you want to get in the game, you have to get around the players that are in the game and start building out your team. And so the next stage I would recommend for people is get invested in a community or a mastermind group. There's plenty out there that aren't super expensive. There's school groups that are cheap. Some are $20, some are $100 a month. There's different ways to go about it. I found, and I think Corey and I, if we could go back in time, we get asked this question often is, what advice would you give your younger self? And this changes in every facet of life. But if I could go back to the younger Corey and Ryan in the real estate game, we got ourselves in rooms early by the podcast, right? But like taking those relationships to the next level and getting into a community with those people would have gotten us so much further than we already are. I don't regret it, right? Because we're getting into the rooms now as we've aged and we've gotten more seasoned in the game. But it would, and then taking it a step further from that is find a mastermind group that also gives you the ability in the future to meet in person, because it's so different, man. And you can attest to this from going to immersion and probably meeting Pace's team on a separate note, but forging those relationships and just realizing everyone is just a human being trying to fight in the same fight and going through it and dealing with the same problems in different ways. It's just so interesting. And you find out it almost proves that you're on the right path, gives you validation. There's other people that are searching for what you're searching, gives you a sounding board to have conversations with them, but then also at the same time allows you to elevate to a level that you might not have even thought possible. Like you hear these stories of people, you read the books that they wrote, you hear them on the podcast, but to be able to get in rooms with them and to really see them in action and realize, whoa, like it's something about seeing it in person that makes you believe it even more. And seeing is believing sometimes, and you can have all the faith in the world, but watching someone actually master their craft and just elevate a room, that has proved to me something so inspirational and that I can do it. We talked about this, right? You look to your left, you look to your right, and you're like, this guy's not smarter than me. They have a couple $1 million, maybe $100 million, but like they just put systems into place. Business isn't that complex, right? Real estate isn't that complex. You find a niche down, and niches are in the riches. You put the work in and work smarter, not harder, and get yourself around the right people is the number one thing I could recommend is, for all you guys listening, enough of diving like headfirst into YouTube and into these books and just get 85% of the way there, build your parachute on the way down, start interacting with these people. How can you get in person? How can you meet them? How can you surround yourself with them? And then you will elevate to their level, take action. And so that's just one thing I wanted to thank you for sharing with us, Kev, because it's cool to see a young cat like you forge his own path and maybe take the road less traveled a little bit on multiple fronts, not only selling your portfolio, but even building it in the beginning. Not many people could do what you do. And you have done, and the relationships you've built are going to carry forward and whatever you go into next. So kudos to you, man. And appreciate you sharing your story.
Of course.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, Kev, I want to talk about what it actually looks like to buy an assisted living facility. We talked about that's the vision, but like, what are the steps that you need to take to do it for people that are listening that might potentially want to go down that route? You have some income coming in, you're starting this new journey. What are the logistical steps that you need to take to do this?
I look at the parallels between if I wanted to go buy a house in the next 30 days, I know how to do it. But the concept of buying a real estate and concept of buying a business is very similar, because you have to find who are even selling, right? You can go on market or you can go off market, and you need to find some sort of motivation. And the motivation could be, if you're in real estate, you might be like, I'm a tired landlord, I want to retire. Okay, well, there's people that own businesses that also want to retire. How can you find those people, right? And once you find, and that's what we call building a list, and I can go into like the nitty gritty, but number one, building a list of people that want to sell, whether it's real estate or business, and marketing. What kind of marketing are you doing? Are you sending direct mails? I'm doing direct mails on my businesses, but then I cold call and text when I'm buying real estate, right? When I was scouting for my ATM locations, I door knocked, right? Like I went into the business. So marketing, so building a list, marketing, and then number 3, underwriting. And I want to, because I have so much extensive knowledge in the real estate game. Underwriting is such a simple concept that people over analyze. It's basically how much money are you paying and how much is it bringing in. There's nothing outside of the underwriting that you can mess up, right? If you're bringing in $10,000 and your rent is and your mortgage payment is $3,000, you're making $7,000 cash flow gross, right? Like that's the concept of it. So it's three things, and then how are you? And number 4, funding it, right? Like, are you bringing in a partner? Is it seller finance? Are you getting an SBA loan? And then number 5 is the operations. Who's going to run it? Are you going to have a property manager find the tenants, or are you going to find the tenants yourself? Or if you were to use that in business, who's going to operate your business? Are you going to hire an employee to do it for you? Right. So the concept is exactly the same. And I take the exact same concept that I learned in real estate and the systems that I have, just applying it back into a different, different vehicle, basically.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have a buy box? What an assisted living facility would look like that you'd want to buy? Like, is it a certain like operator that's been in business for X amount of time, certain amount of beds that are in this assisted living facility, certain location? Do you have any of that built out that, because I ask these questions, and I am asking like kind of hard hitting questions for a specific reason. And it is because you're 24, dude. You've already done all these things that 24-year-olds dream of. I'm trying to make it possible, or show people that it's possible, and show the actual steps of what it is to, like, a 24-year-old can buy an assisted living facility, and you're going to do that. So what does that look like? And if you don't have all the details flushed out, that's fine too. But I'm curious if you have like where maybe you're looking and like who you're calling on, if that's something that you've built into your business yet.
Yeah, so I'm looking at an assisted living facility between 30 to 50 beds. So I'm not looking at any like small stuff. I feel like bigger stuff is easier to manage. And I'm looking at specifically in San Diego County, because I want to move to San Diego. So like eventually, like I live in Europe now, but I want to move to San Diego eventually. And then and I think that's it for now.
Okay, cool, man.
Yeah.
Great. I think this is awesome. I think that, is there anything else that you'd want to share about the journey of building your real estate portfolio that you left out that you feel like would be beneficial for somebody who's starting out, somebody who's trying to get their first, second, third, fourth, fifth property, that, and maybe some advice that you would leave to them as you exit the real estate, but you enter the new world of business?
Yes. This is not a real estate advice, but I do want to point out, because Ryan, you mentioned it earlier, is like you will get to a point where like you might be passionate about real estate, like how I was, back when I was in 5th grade, and then I build my portfolio, and I hit a point where, like I want to go build something different, and I wish a lot of people were people have the courage to pivot from something that they're comfortable with, right? Like, which is the reason why most people don't have, they're scared to leave their job. They're scared to do something else, right? But then it's like for me, I could have stayed in Arizona, lived in Arizona for the rest of my life, buy one house a month. And, if by the age of 65, I probably would have $350 million of real estate paid off. My life would be good. But then I'm like, you know what? That's not the life that I want to live. I don't want to enjoy my life when I'm 65. I want to enjoy my life right now and, and when I'm 65. So I want to go build something bigger and faster. And I'm so glad because of the courage that I have to build, knowing that I'm going to be able to build something bigger and better. So even if it's something that works for you, but you're not passionate about it, there's no harm in like trying something new, right? Like if I failed, let's just say, Corey, like if I failed this business buying thing, I can always go back in real estate and make money, and I can try it again. Leave your parents' house. I left my parents' house. I was fortunate enough to not have to go back because I did pretty well. But what if you left your parents' house and you're like, well, I need to go back in? Okay, well, go back in, try it again a few months later.
I want to jump in here. I would say, and this is another PSA for people listening, a lot of this is an ego issue. Mm-hmm. And you get to this game and let's just say you get to your 30s, right? And everybody, your friends are starting to make more money. Some are making much more money than you would have thought possible. They're getting the bigger house. They're getting the better car. Kids are popping out, all these things, right? And you like compare yourself. What they say is comparison is the thief of joy, right? And you're like, oh, well, he's doing that. She's doing that. No, you don't know what they have going on in the background. You don't know what's leased. You don't know what they bought. You don't know how much dough they actually have. How much debt are they in from college? There's so much going on that people don't know, but they immediately compare themselves because they see social media and the highlight reels. And so I just want to kind of point that out where it's okay to pivot and recreate your life at any point that you want. And I've seen people do this in their 60s and they're just like, dude, this wasn't for me. I did this shit for someone for my whole life. And like, now I just want to try something new. And people are like, oh, is that midlife or quarter life or whatever life crisis they're in now? Is like, you see the guys finally buying the sports cars they always wanted. And like, sometimes these crises that are like, oh, the guy's just doing what he wants to do. And I say guy because we get the bad rap sometimes here, but like, it's so interesting when you kind of break free from the mindset of like having to do things for other people in a way, right? At some point I just want to say, from a perspective now, as I'm a dad, I'm married, and I've done a lot of the things like the check the box things that like people show are successful, right? And I've done those all because I wanted to do them, and I'm happy that, and I'm fulfilled in that aspect of my life. And it's just, but I'm getting to this point where it's so interesting where like a lot of the things you're like, think that you would be 100% fulfilled. Like, I'm just good. Right. But then I just have this something else in me that's like, right, you're just scratching the surface of your purpose here. And like, you're meant for more, dude. Like, look at the lives you're impacting with this podcast. And like, I always just felt, and I think a lot of people feel this way, right? Like, we're all unique and different and put on this earth for whatever reason. We haven't figured that out yet. But when you get a taste of like impact on people and you're like, whoa, my voice is carrying and I'm helping people and I'm getting thank yous and things that are coming around, and just, you realize the world it's more than money, and it's a lot. It's on uplifting others, relationships, helping others. But I also want people to remember, when you get a family and you get a wife or a husband, like, don't forget about you. I think you can get trapped in and consumed by what you're supposed to do, and you get the job and you get the family and you do things, and you have to remember to take care of you. And I say this to say, like, try things. Don't be afraid to break the mold. If you have a good partner and you have conversations, my wife and I had deep conversations about where this business is going and how it's going to impact both of us. And she believes in me 100% and backs it and knows it's my passion. And like, we're locked in on it, which is awesome. And then what she wants to do, I'm all open ears, and I'll let her do whatever she wants to do. She's a bar 3 instructor. I know it's like a passion project. She's obsessed with it. She loves it. It's not something that's going to make them $1 million a year. I don't care. It makes her so incredibly happy. She's impacting others. She's happy. And my daughter gets to go to classes with her, and they spend time together. And like, it's just a cool thing. So I say everybody's got their own lane. And as you grow older and you go through this, you start trying to slow down time because things start to fly. And if people can remember and like kind of try to sit in the moment a little bit more and find out what your passions are again. I think I had to go through that, after working 10 years in corporate and, doing the things that in life that are just like, you're supposed to do, air quotes. You're like, whoa, man, like, Rye, what do you like to do, man? Like, you almost like, it's great hanging out with the boys. You know, Corey likes to golf. I like to play video games. I like sports. Like there's just things, and I just stopped doing some of these things. I'm like, what am I doing, bro? Like getting back in the gym heavy, like crazy, not like 2 days a week, like 5 days a week. Like part of my identity's there. I'm like, dude, I'm back. Like, and it took me to have conversations with very high net worth individuals in person, as I mentioned, to the mastermind group, and with Corey, you know, like we talk every day, and just really understand that if you don't fight and defend your own time as well, balance is key here. But if you don't do that, you can get lost in the sauce, and you got to make sure that you're fulfilled and happy and chasing the things that you want to chase. And so I say kudos to you, Kevin, for saying, hey, real estate, you know, is amazing. It showed me a great life, but I'm pivoting. You know, it's not for me. I'm on to the next. And a lot of people would just say real estate makes money, so I'm sticking with it, even if it doesn't bring them passion. So I bring that back to say, don't be afraid to pivot, make a complete change, sell your portfolio, you know, do things tactfully and make calculated risks and things like that. But if you want to go take an acting class, you want to go learn an instrument, you want to go learn a new language, you want to travel, like go friggin' do it, man. Like the bank account is just going to keep stacking over time. And sooner, you never know when your time is coming, when some life's going to smack you at one point. It happens for all of us, whether it's an illness or something happens to someone and things get close and you realize time is fragile. So I like getting philosophical at the end of shows, but I'll get off my soapbox, and I just want people to understand that this is some of the stuff as entrepreneurs that we go through, and it's not perfect. And what appears to be perfect online is not all the time. We're all in our own journey, but we like going and uplifting others. And I think that's what makes the world go round. So appreciate you guys for, listening to me riff for a couple minutes.
Of course.
Cool, man. Well, Kevin, we appreciate you coming on, man. Last question for me. What gets you out of bed every morning? Like, what is your why? What's the reason that, you've been maybe the underlying tone for your life and the reason that you've been able to see the success? Why do you do it?
I wish my answer was like family and all that, but I think I want to prove myself that I can do something bigger than I've done before, and it is definitely ego. Ego is what gets me out of my bed, and I'm like, money gets me out of my bed. No fancy answer here, just.
Cool. Kev, I actually appreciate that answer, and I think we could. I'm not a psychologist here. You could break down the money thing to having options and like the power that comes behind it, and to be what you said you are, who you said you were going to be. I think the world and capitalism is so interesting, the world we revolve around, and because everybody values, or a lot of people value, someone that has high stature, and they are successful because they have money or they have all these things, and like it's an interesting thing. I always set a bar as like a dollar amount, right? And it's hard not to when the world revolves around. I can do more things, I can have more things, I feel like I'm at the top of my game if I make more money. But it's just such an interesting concept where I think to get out of bed every morning, it's not the wrong answer to say, hey, some people it is their family, right? And that's all they live and breathe and they die for. But what I did, part of my talk on the soapbox a couple of minutes ago, there's two lanes, and I think you're taking care of others, right? But then you have to take care of yourself. And part of that ego is, you were put on this earth for something, right? We're trying to find our purpose. And like, the world, this is a game to me. Like life is a game, right? And you're just trying to play within the confines of the rules that whoever has dictated has put out there in society. And so you try to get to the top of the game. And I think that's why, Corey, he is obsessed with golf. Newer thing last couple of years, but like it's such a hard game to master. He's taking lessons. He's gone out. He shows up on the course every weekend. He's changing his swing. He's analyzing. He's getting around people that are great at it. And I'm just bringing golf as something, right? But that's like another thing to test yourself. We, like, as competitors and high performers, right? We're just dogs, dude. Whatever it is inside of us, we just want to try to figure out like how to become the best at it. And that's what I realized for me. Sometimes people ask me like, what's your why? I can mention the family, but something is like, dude, I want to win. I just hate losing. And for me, I've set the game as like like a dollar sign, or like, once I get this car, once I can do this vacation, once my family has no wants or needs, then I win, right? But I don't know that's the right answer. I'm soul searching, right? Like I'm always evolving, and like the rooms we get in, it changes. And so I think it's important to have two different answers there. So I don't think that's the wrong answer, Kev. I think it's a great answer. I think you need to, wake up in the morning, look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, I want to be the best version of me. And whatever that is to you, like you go chase it. And so you're doing that. So I think you're winning already, man. So that's my take on it. I strive to find that answer every day. And like I know it gets me out of bed every morning. I know it gets me juiced up and like I'm on the right track, but I think that changes sometimes as we evolve and as you get older and you go through things. But these are my favorite parts of the conversation, getting philosophical, getting to know people on a deeper level. And overall, I think it was a great episode. Appreciate your time. If people enjoyed the episode, Kevin, and they want to get to know you, maybe network, riff a little bit back and forth, just chat with you further, how can they connect?
The best way is DM me on Instagram. It's the Kevin Choe, THE Kevin CHOE. I answer every single one of my DMs every morning and every night. And yeah, best way.
My man, thank you. It was a pleasure getting to know you, and we're excited to chat further.
Thank you, guys.